Hello everyone, before I begin, I'd like to ask you to please subscribe to my channel if you enjoy true, raw stories about life, betrayal, and the lessons we learn the hard way. Your support really helps me continue sharing these deeply personal experiences with you. So, take a moment, hit that subscribe button, and let's dive right into my story. My name is Catherine Hayes, and I am 47 years old. I never thought I would ever be telling this kind of story to strangers on the internet. But sometimes, when the people closest to you break your heart in ways you never imagined possible, you just need to let it out. And I hope that by sharing my story, someone out there who has gone through something similar will feel less alone. Maybe you'll even learn something from the mistakes I made, and the strength I had to find afterward. I grew up in a small town in the Midwest of the United States. It wasn't glamorous, but it was home. I was the oldest of two sisters. My younger sister's name is Vanessa. She is 3 years younger than me, and from the moment she was born, I felt like it was my responsibility to protect her, to look out for her, to guide her through life. I can still remember holding her as a baby, feeling this enormous love in my chest, like I would do anything in the world to keep her safe. Our parents were hard-working people. My father was a mechanic, always covered in grease and oil from fixing cars, and my mother worked part-time at a bakery. We didn't have much money, but we had love, or at least that's what I thought. Growing up, I was always the responsible one. I did well in school, I helped around the house, and I even helped raise Vanessa when mom was too tired or dad was working late. Vanessa, on the other hand, was always the free spirit. She had this charm about her that could win people over in seconds. She was the kind of girl who walked into a room and everyone wanted to be her friend. She was funny, spontaneous, and bold. I admired her in so many ways, but I also worried about her. She never liked rules. Never liked responsibilities. If there was a shortcut, Vanessa would take it. If there was an easy way out, she would grab it. Still, I loved her unconditionally. She was my sister. When we were kids, we didn't fight much. I think I was too patient with her, always giving in, always letting her have her way. If we both wanted the same toy, I'd give it to her. If mom baked cookies, I'd let her take the bigger one. People used to say I spoiled her. Maybe I did. But I just wanted her to be happy. Isn't that what older sisters do? As we grew older, our lives took different paths. I went to college, studied business, and eventually built a stable career. I worked hard, saved my money, and eventually bought a modest home of my own. Vanessa, on the other hand, never seemed to stick with anything. She'd start jobs and quit after a few months. She'd date guys who treated her badly, and when things went wrong, she'd always call me crying, asking for help. And every time, without hesitation, I would be there. I gave her money, I let her stay with me when she had nowhere else to go, and I supported her dreams, even when they were unrealistic. Looking back now, I see that maybe I enabled her too much. Maybe by always being her safety net, I kept her from ever really growing up. But at the time it felt like the right thing to do. She was my sister. Family comes first. That was the rule I lived by. By the time I turned 40, I felt proud of the life I had built. I wasn't rich, but I was comfortable. I had a house, a decent savings account, and a small business I had been working on for years. It was a little shop in town that sold handmade crafts, local goods, and personalized items. It wasn't a big operation, but it was mine. It was my passion. I poured my heart and soul into it, and slowly, it became successful. Vanessa, meanwhile, had bounced from one failed relationship to another. She never settled down, never kept a steady job. By the time she was in her 40s, she still didn't have much to her name. She would visit me often, and every time, she'd make comments about how nice my house was, or how lucky I was to own a business. I didn't think much of it then. I thought she was just noticing the differences in our lives. But now, looking back, I realized those were little seeds of jealousy that had been growing inside her for years. One particular night, I remember we were sitting in my living room, drinking wine. She looked around at my home and sighed. "You know, Catherine," she said, "you've always had everything together. The house, the business, the money. It's like you got all the good luck in the family." I laughed it off, trying to reassure her. "It's not luck, Vanessa. I worked hard for all this. You could do it too if you really wanted to." She smiled, but there was something in her eyes that unsettled me. A sharpness, a flicker of resentment. I brushed it aside. She was my sister after all. I couldn't imagine she would ever truly want to harm me. But as the years went on, those little comments turned into bigger ones. She would joke about me leaving her something in my will. She would make remarks about how unfair it was that I had built a life while she was still struggling. Sometimes she would get drunk and blurt out things like, "If I had what you have, I'd be set for life." At first I pitied her. I thought maybe she was just bitter about the choices she had made. But slowly, I began to sense something darker. One of the biggest turning points came when I decided to update my will. At 47, I wasn't planning to die anytime soon, of course. But being practical, I wanted to make sure my assets were protected. I had no children of my own, and I wasn't married. Naturally, my first thought was Vanessa. She was my only sister, my closest family. So I decided to leave most of my estate to her. It felt like the right thing to do. I trusted her completely. Who else would I give everything to? When I told her about it, she lit up like a child on Christmas morning. She hugged me tightly, tears in her eyes, and said, "You really mean it? You'd do that for me?" "Of course," I said. "You're my sister. I want to make sure you're taken care of." At the time, it felt like a beautiful moment between us. But I had no idea what kind of storm I was about to unleash. Because from that moment on, Vanessa's behavior began to change. She became more involved in my life, more curious about my finances, more insistent on knowing details about my business and my savings. She would call me daily, checking in, but always steering the conversation toward money. At first, I thought she was just being more interested in me, but soon it started to feel intrusive. I ignored my gut feeling though. I told myself, she's just excited. She feels secure knowing I care about her future. But deep inside, I began to feel uneasy. The unease grew stronger a few months later. I had a minor health scare, nothing too serious, just a fainting episode from exhaustion. But when Vanessa heard about it, her reaction was strange. Instead of asking how I was feeling, or if I needed help, she immediately asked, "Did you talk to your lawyer about updating your will? Just in case something happens." That comment sent chills through me. I laughed nervously, brushing it off, but inside, I felt a knot of fear. Who thinks like that? Who hears their sister fainted and immediately thinks of inheritance? From then on, I started noticing other things. She would accidentally pick up my financial statements when visiting my home. She would ask to help with my shop but then snoop through the books instead of actually working. She even suggested at one point that we merge my business under both our names, though she never invested a single dollar or lifted a finger to help. The cracks were becoming visible, though at that time I still refused to accept the truth. I wanted to believe she loved me the way I loved her. I wanted to believe her intentions were good. But the signs of betrayal were right there, staring me in the face. And I was about to learn just how far my own sister was willing to go to take everything I owned. The uneasy feeling inside me didn't go away. In fact, it grew stronger with each passing day. Every time Vanessa came over, I felt her eyes scanning my home, lingering on the furniture, the framed photographs, the bookshelves, almost as if she was taking inventory of what would soon be hers. At night, lying in bed, I replayed her words in my mind. "Did you talk to your lawyer about updating your will?" That one sentence haunted me. I wanted to believe I was being paranoid. After all, this was my sister, the girl I had carried on my hip as a child, the girl whose scraped knees I had bandaged, the girl I had defended when kids at school teased her. How could I even begin to imagine that she might be planning to take advantage of me? But then, little by little, she started crossing lines I could no longer ignore. It began with small things. One afternoon, I came home early from the shop and found her in my office, going through my desk drawers. When I asked what she was doing, she laughed nervously and said, "Oh, I was just looking for a pen." But the drawer she had opened didn't hold pens. It held my bank statements and insurance papers. Another time, she came by when I wasn't home and convinced my neighbor to let her in. When I confronted her, she shrugged and said, "I just wanted to surprise you. I thought maybe I could clean up for you." But my house was already spotless. Something about the way she said it, so casual, so unapologetic, made my stomach twist. Then, one evening, as we sat together at the dining table, she asked, "Catherine, do you ever feel like you'd be happier if you didn't have to run the shop anymore? I mean, it must be stressful. What if you let me handle it for a while?" You could step back, relax. Trust me with it. The suggestion hit me like a slap in the face. Trust her with my business? The very thing I had spent years building, the thing that was my livelihood, my pride, my independence? I forced a polite smile and said, "Thank you, but I love running the shop. It keeps me busy, and I enjoy it." Her eyes darkened for just a moment, then she quickly plastered on a smile. "Of course, I just thought I'd offer. You work so hard, sis." But deep down, I knew what she was doing. She wanted control. Piece by piece, she was testing the waters, seeing how far she could push, how much she could get away with. One of the most chilling moments came not long after. I had been invited to speak at a local women's business group, sharing my experience as a small shop owner. Vanessa came along, sitting proudly in the audience. Afterward, as people mingled, I overheard her introducing herself not as my sister, but as my business partner. She smiled, shaking hands confidently, while I stood frozen, unable to believe my ears. When I confronted her later, she brushed it off. "What's the big deal? I help you sometimes, don't I?" People don't care about the details. But I cared. It wasn't just a lie, it was a glimpse into the version of reality she was trying to create, one where my achievements were hers, where my identity blurred into hers, where she could step into my shoes and claim everything I had built. From that moment on, I began paying closer attention. I noticed how often she brought up the future, speaking as if it was already decided that she would inherit everything I owned. She even started making plans aloud, saying things like, "When I take over the shop, I'll change the display windows," or, "This living room would look better with a bigger couch when I move in." At first, I laughed nervously, thinking she was joking. But the more she said it, the more convinced I became that she wasn't joking at all. She was preparing herself, preparing me, for a future where she would have it all, and I would have nothing. The final straw came one stormy night in late October. I had been working late at the shop, going over inventory. By the time I got home, rain was pouring down in heavy sheets, and the house was dark. As I unlocked the door and stepped inside, I felt something was off. The air was too still, too heavy. My instincts screamed at me. I flicked on the light, and there she was, Vanessa. Sitting in my living room, drenched from the rain, her hair plastered to her face, her eyes wild. "Vanessa," I said, my voice trembling. "What are you doing here? How did you even get in?" She stood up slowly, her shoulders shaking. "Catherine, I can't do this anymore. I can't sit back and watch you have everything while I have nothing. It's not fair." My heart pounded in my chest. "What are you talking about? You're my sister. I've always helped you. I've given you money, a place to stay, everything I could." "It's not enough," she screamed, her voice echoing off the walls. "You don't understand what it's like to always be second best, to always watch you succeed while I fail. You think you're better than me, don't you? With your perfect little shop, your perfect little life." I felt tears sting my eyes. "Vanessa, I never thought I was better than you. I just worked hard. Everything I have I earned. Why would you hate me for that?" Her expression twisted, and for a terrifying moment, I didn't recognize the woman standing in front of me. This wasn't my sister. This was someone consumed by envy, by bitterness, by a hunger that could never be satisfied. "I deserve it, Catherine," she said, her voice low and cold. "I deserve everything you have. And one way or another, I'm going to take it." My hands shook as I tried to reason with her. "Vanessa, listen to yourself. You're talking like a stranger. This isn't you. You don't need to take what's mine. You can build your own life. I'll help you, I always have." But she only laughed. A hollow, bitter laugh that chilled me to my core. That night marked the beginning of the end. From then on, I knew I couldn't ignore the truth anymore. My sister wasn't just jealous. She was dangerous. I started taking precautions. I changed the locks on my doors. I moved my financial documents to a safety deposit box. I installed cameras around my house, something I had never thought I'd need to do. I even spoke with my lawyer, telling him I wanted to reconsider parts of my will. He looked at me with concern and said, "Catherine, you need to be careful. When money and family mix, things can turn ugly fast." He was right. Things were already turning ugly. Vanessa noticed the changes. She came over one afternoon and tried to open the front door with her old key. When it didn't work, She looked up at the camera above the porch and sneered. Later that night, she called me, furious. "Did you change the locks on me?" she demanded. "Yes," I said firmly. "Vanessa, you can't just come into my house whenever you please. This is my home. I'm your sister," she shouted. "I have a right to be there." "No, you don't," I replied. "Being my sister doesn't give you the right to invade my privacy. You've crossed too many lines, and I won't allow it anymore." There was a long pause. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. "You think you can keep me out, Catherine? You think you can protect all your precious things from me? You have no idea how far I'll go." After that call, I barely slept. I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering what she meant. How far would she go? Would she try to steal from me again? Would she try to hurt me? The thought of it made my skin crawl. Over the following weeks, her behavior grew more erratic. She started showing up at my shop, standing outside, watching through the window without coming in. Customers noticed her and whispered, asking if everything was okay. I'd force a smile and say, "Oh, that's just my sister." But inside I was terrified. One evening, after I closed the shop, I walked out to my car and found a note tucked under the windshield wiper. The handwriting was unmistakably hers. The note said, "You can't keep what should be mine forever." I clutched the paper in my hands, my knees weak. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't just jealousy anymore. This was obsession. I wanted to believe there was still hope, that maybe I could reach the sister I once knew. But the more I tried to talk to her, the more venomous her words became. She accused me of being selfish, of hoarding everything, of never truly caring about her. And no matter what I said, she wouldn't listen. I was losing her. Maybe I had already lost her years ago, and in her place stood someone who saw me not as family, but as an obstacle, standing between her and the life she thought she deserved. And as much as it broke my heart, I realized I had to prepare myself. Because Vanessa wasn't going to stop. She was going to push further, take bigger risks, cross lines I couldn't even imagine yet. The question was, how far was she willing to go? If you've been listening this far, thank you for staying with me through this painful part of my story. It only gets more intense from here, so please make sure to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss my journey. I walked out of that courthouse with my head held high, the papers in my hand feeling like both a shield and a sword. The air outside was brisk, carrying the scent of rain that had fallen earlier in the morning, and I breathed deeply, almost as though I could finally fill my lungs after months of suffocating under the weight of betrayal. My name was officially cleared, my ownership of my home and my business secured. But victories like these never come without scars. That night when I got home, I sat in my living room, the same living room my sister Vanessa had once tried to take from me, and let the silence sink in. It was different silence now. Not heavy with fear, but filled with the faint hum of peace returning. The walls seemed to stand taller, the furniture looked warmer, and even the air felt cleaner. For the first time in so long, I wasn't worried about someone coming after what was mine. Still, I couldn't stop my thoughts from drifting back. Back to when we were children, when Vanessa and I shared bunk beds, secrets, and silly dreams about the future. Back to when I thought, sister, meant someone who would always protect you, not someone you needed protection from. I wondered, had she always been this way? Or did life, money, and greed twist her into someone I barely recognized? I didn't have the answer. And maybe I never would. What I did know was this. I had taken back control of my life. And I wasn't going to waste the second chance that fate had given me. In the days following the court ruling, the neighborhood seemed to change too. People who had once whispered behind my back started approaching me with words of support. "We always knew you'd win, Catherine," one of my neighbors said. "You didn't deserve what she did." Their words warmed me, but also made me realize how visible my pain had been. Everyone had seen me crumble, and now they were watching me rise. I wasn't ashamed of that anymore. Rising after betrayal is no small feat. It's something to be proud of. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat out on the porch. My best friend, Marissa, joined me. She had been by my side through everything, reminding me of my strength when I doubted myself. "You know what I admire most about you?" she said, sipping from her glass. "What?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "That you didn't just survive this. You fought. You didn't let her steal your spirit along with everything else she tried to take. Her words sank deep. She was right. For a long time, I had let Vanessa's betrayal define me. But now I was defining myself again. As weeks turned into months, my life started finding a new rhythm. I threw myself back into my work, rebuilding the business that Vanessa had nearly dismantled. My customers returned, slowly at first, then steadily, until the hum of activity felt like music again. Each day brought small victories: a kind review, a repeat client, a moment of laughter with my employees. I had worried that bitterness might consume me, that I'd never be able to trust again. But I discovered something surprising. I wasn't bitter. I was wiser, yes, and more cautious. But I hadn't let her betrayal rot me from the inside out. Instead, it had taught me the value of boundaries, of self-respect, of choosing carefully who I let into my inner circle. Did I miss my sister? In a strange way, yes. I missed the sister I thought I had, the one I believed would stand by me no matter what. But that person was a memory, not the reality. The Vanessa who stood in front of that judge, trying to strip me of everything I had worked for, wasn't the same girl I had once shared secrets with. And I had to accept that. The final confrontation with her came unexpectedly. I was leaving the grocery store one afternoon when I saw her standing by the parking lot. She looked thinner, more worn down. Her clothes hung loosely, and her eyes carried a shadow I had never seen before. "Catherine," she called out, her voice weak. I froze. Part of me wanted to walk away, to pretend I hadn't heard. But another part of me, the part that still remembered the sister I grew up with, made me stop. We stood face to face, the air heavy with unspoken words. "I didn't think you'd even look at me," she said softly. "What do you want, Vanessa?" My voice was steady, but my heart pounded. She looked down, fumbling with her hands. I made mistakes. Big ones. I lost more than I ever thought I would. And I don't mean just the case." Her eyes finally met mine, glistening with unshed tears. "I lost you." For a moment, I felt the sting of old wounds. She was right. She had lost me. Not because I had walked away, but because she had pushed me away with every lie, every betrayal, every greedy move. "I can't go back," I said quietly. "You took something from me I can never get back. Trust." Her shoulders sagged. "I know. I don't expect forgiveness. I wanted you to know I regret it." I stood there, torn between anger and pity. Part of me wanted to scream at her, to demand why she had done it, why family hadn't been enough for her. But another part of me just felt tired. "I hope you find peace, Vanessa," I said finally. "But I can't let you back into my life. Not after everything." Her face crumpled, and for the first time, I saw the weight of her choices etched across her features. She nodded slowly, then turned and walked away. I watched her go, my heart heavy but resolute. That was the last time I saw her. In the months that followed, I focused on the life I was rebuilding. I decorated my home with new memories, filled my days with work, laughter, and moments of quiet joy. The scars were still there, yes, but they no longer hurt when I touched them. They were simply reminders of a battle I had fought, and won. One day, I found myself speaking at a community event, sharing my story with others who had faced betrayal in their own ways. As I looked out at the crowd, I realized something profound. My pain had become my strength. My story wasn't just about loss, it was about resilience, courage, and reclaiming my life. I ended that speech with words I had come to live by. Sometimes the people we trust most can hurt us the deepest. But that doesn't mean we stop living. It means we learn, we grow, and we rise stronger than ever before. And that's exactly what I did. Now, as I sit here telling you my story, I'm not the broken woman I once was. I'm 47 years old, and I've faced betrayal that could have destroyed me. But instead of letting it win, I chose to fight. I chose to rise. And if you take anything from my story, let it be this. You are stronger than you think, and no betrayal, no matter how deep, can take away your ability to rebuild. Months later, I even expanded my business, opening a second location downtown. It was something I had dreamed of for years but had put off because I was always too busy dealing with Vanessa's manipulations and disruptions. Now, with the first location thriving, I had the confidence and freedom to grow further. It was exhilarating to see something I had built from scratch expand, to see my vision come to life without anyone standing in my way. In my personal life, I focused on healing as well. I rekindled old friendships I had neglected, traveled to places I had always wanted to see, and took up hobbies that brought me joy. Painting, hiking, even simple things like cooking a new recipe became acts of reclaiming myself. Every brushstroke, every step on a trail, every new dish was a reminder that I was in charge of my own happiness. I also learned to set boundaries in a way I never had before. Vanessa had taught me a painful lesson, but it was invaluable. Loving someone doesn't mean letting them hurt you repeatedly. Trust is precious, and not everyone deserves unlimited access to your life. One quiet evening, I reflected on everything: the betrayal, the fight, the triumph. And I realized something profound. The story that had once caused me so much pain was now a story of empowerment. What could have broken me had instead strengthened me. What could have stolen my peace had instead clarified what truly mattered. I smiled as I looked around my home, each corner filled with memories of resilience and hope. Vanessa was a chapter in my life that had ended, but I had written the ending on my own terms. And now, for the first time in years, I felt truly free. If you've stayed with me until the end, thank you for listening to my journey. Life can be unpredictable, even cruel, but it also has a way of giving second chances to those who are brave enough to fight for them. If my story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe, so we can continue sharing more stories of resilience, courage, and overcoming life's toughest challenges. Because even after the deepest betrayal, life can still be beautiful, and sometimes, it's even more vibrant than we ever imagined.